Thank you very much for having me once again. Today, I would like to make an analysis regarding the latest municipal elections in Turkey. The elections took place on 31st of March this year. And as we all witnessed, the Turkish opposition made a huge surprise and they won a landslide victory. Today, I would like to make an analysis on that. In order to make it more colorful and more comprehensible for you, I would like to now share a map so that you can also have a better understanding. I really hope that now you can see the map. As you can see here, the red color represents the Republican People's Party, the leading opposition party in Turkey. And the yellow color represents the Justice and Development Party of Mr. Erdogan. And the blue color represents the Nationalist Movement Party, which is considered as an ally of Mr. Erdogan. The other parties, like the Dem Party, you can see them in hang on a second, apologies. You can see them purple color. They are the Kurdish party, and another very striking and very important actor in these elections, of course, were the New Welfare Party, the Islamist party, which became victorious in the Yozgat and the Şanlıurfa provinces. And as you can see here, also it's written on the screen, the voter turnout was 78%, which was lower than the previous general elections. At the end of the day, the general elections are considered as very important for Turkey's future. Of course, the municipal elections are also very important, but not as much as the general elections. Nevertheless, in Turkey, we see that the political parties are tending to give so much importance to the local elections. In their opinion, this is kind of a rehearsal for when we are. It is a kind of a rehearsal for the next general elections. And of course, in Turkey, in the Turkish politics, there is a well-known popular saying: whoever is controlling Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir, these three provinces, Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir, will ultimately become victorious in the next general elections. Of course, this popular saying proved to be wrong during the last elections, because at the end of the day, the Republican People's Party's victory in Istanbul and in capital Ankara was with a photo finish then. However, this time, unlike the 2019 elections, this time we are seeing a very important difference. For instance, in Istanbul, as you can see here, the candidate Ekrem İmamoğlu, who became later once again mayor for another term, he received more than 51%. For him, of course, this makes him the ultimate candidate, the ultimate figure of the opposition. That at the end, in my opinion, he will going to challenge Mr. Erdogan in the next general elections, which were scheduled in 2028. And besides that, also, as you can see here in capital Ankara, the difference is even even bigger. The mayor Mansur Yavaş was able to win the elections with almost all-time high percentage of 60%. So and last but not the least, the stronghold of the Turkish secularism, the city of Izmir. There again, we did not see any surprise, and the Republican People's Party won this election. But I also would like to make another point here, that unlike the previous maps that we all witnessed throughout the years, for the first time ever, we happen to see a penetration of the red color of the Republican People's Party into the central Anatolian region. And I think this is very important. For instance, Kırıkkale and Kırşehir are the provinces which are considered very conservative. But again, as you can see, the difference of the difference between the two candidates, both in Kırşehir and Kırıkkale, is very significant. But again, with all optimism, with all due respect and with all the optimism in favor of the Republican People's Party, I would like to make a very important analysis here with a very, slight difference in this province, the province of Kütahya, which is considered as a very conservative, province. As you can see here, the Republican People's Party candidate Eyüp Kahveci won it, with a very slight difference. As you can see here in the sub districts, we are seeing that the Nationalist Movement Party, basically, they became the dominant force. So long story short, when we are looking at the voting percentages, here, the first place we are seeing in a miraculous manner the Republican People's Party. And please look at the second and the third one. The second one was Nationalist Movement Party, and the third one was the Justice and Development Party. So the most important catch here is the Justice and Development Party and the Nationalist Movement Party, they formed an alliance in Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir, but not in all the provinces. So if the Nationalist Movement Party and the Justice and Development Party had formed an alliance here, they could easily beat the Republican People's Party, for instance. Therefore, we should look at this map in a more skeptical manner. I assume that both Justice and Development Party and the Nationalist Movement Party, they will draw necessary conclusions from these elections, and therefore they will do their best in order to make their situation better in the next election. So therefore, in many different provinces where there was a very slight race, so everything is very much changeable. Besides that, I also would like to make a reference to the other Islamist party, which is the New Welfare Party, which acquired the Yozgat and the Şanlıurfa provinces. These two provinces traditionally are thought as very much conservative and religious. And as you can see, when we are looking, for instance, on the Yozgat province, as you can see here, we are having a very, very conservative picture. The New Welfare Party got the majority of the votes, and in the second place we have the Nationalist Movement Party, and in the last place we have the Justice and Development Party. So the secular CHP only received 2% in this province. So why is it important? Because during the election campaign, the New Welfare Party, they did not agree to run in the elections together with the Justice and Development Party, and they began to attack Justice and Development Party for its welfare policies. As we all, I assume, remember, during January, Mr. Erdogan was asked to increase the wages of the retirees, of the retired people in Turkey, the pensioners, and he refused to do that in a manner that could satisfy the masses. So the new welfare party attacked Mr. Erdogan in this manner that they brought this issue as a precondition to forge an alliance with him. And since Erdogan did not answer to their demands, so they refused to declare their alliance with the Justice and Development Party. In addition to that, the new welfare party also brought Israel on the table. As we all know, since October, we are unfortunately experiencing here a war in Israel because of Hamas's barbaric terrorist attack against Israeli civilians. Israel had no choice but to launch a very justified war. It is one of the most important episodes, of course, in our history. And of course, it's not surprising that the pan-Islamist New Welfare Party adopted a very pro-Palestinian stance. And since Mr. Erdogan is not putting an end to the trade relations with the state of Israel, so a new welfare party again brought cutting the trade ties with Israel as a precondition to declare its support in the elections. And again, Justice and Development Party, I assume that because of the pure realpolitik, realism, they decided not to harm the fragile Turkish economy more, and therefore they refused the demand of the new welfare party. And as a result of these two important demands, we did not see an alliance between Justice and Development Party and the New Welfare Party, and the outcome was very bitter for Justice and Development Party. For in the eyes of the New Welfare Party, indeed, this was a very important test, and of course, it brought to this party an electoral victory, a leverage, and of course, a basis for propaganda and more funding for the future political activities. And besides that, I also would like to refer to the prospects for the future. And of course, this was a huge defeat for Mr. Erdogan. As you can see, when Erdogan himself was not at the ballot box, that is the say. If the Turkish constituency is not voting for Erdogan himself, so we can see that even his constituency can vote for other political parties. But when we are seeing that Erdogan when a certain election will determine the destiny of the Turkish president, then we are seeing that the Turkish constituency is more and more loyal to Erdogan's personal cult, to personal figure. That is to say, when in the future, when Erdogan will not be Turkey's president, then I assume that Justice and Development Party will be an ordinary party in the Turkish politics, and unless they would be able to produce a new successor for the Turkish president. And therefore, just before the elections, I think the two senior Justice and Development Party important figures, Bekir Bozdağ and Mustafa Elitaş, they both foresaw this coming, and they already told that it would be suitable if Erdogan would run in the next elections in 2028. And they both of them, they all reminded the Article 116 in the Turkish constitution. Accordingly, if an acting president is ruling his country of course, he can only run his country for 2 terms. But if he will not be able to finish his second term properly, meaning that if he will need to declare for a snap election, then the same president is eligible to run his country for a third term. Therefore, these two important AKP figures already declared their intention that Erdogan should lead them not only for the next elections, as Bekir Bozdağ said, but also Mustafa Elitaş said that a necessary constitutional amendment should be carried out to tell the Turkish constituency that the bond with Erdogan will be forever until his death. So this is again very much important. And therefore, despite the fact that Erdogan himself told the Turkish press and the constituency that he is not willing to run for the next elections, I think this is a political maneuver. If you will be able to recall, when Turkey once was ran by a parliamentary system, then Mr. Erdogan also made some important statements regarding to transmit Turkey from a parliamentary system to a presidential one, and he led for a public debate, for a public discourse. And therefore, I think that this is, again, more or less the same politics, the same sort of an understanding, the same agenda, that with this kind of declaration that he's not going to run for another term, he is, in my opinion, of course, my personal opinion, he is pushing his most important loyal supporters to make a necessary preparations for the public discourse to pave his way for another term. And therefore, I assume that Turkey will not go to elections in 2028 as it is scheduled, but rather Erdogan most likely will declare a snap election in 2026, and therefore the elections most likely will take place in 2027. Again, I'm emphasizing and highlighting that this is my own personal opinion, and it's not written somewhere. I just wanted to make it clear. And of course, Mr. İmamoğlu, Ekrem İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul, who was able to defeat Erdogan's two candidates, both Binali Yıldırım and Murat Kurum in Istanbul, is likely to become the new candidate for that could, of course, compete against Erdogan, challenge Erdogan. But this will not be easy because Erdogan, who controls the judiciary in Turkey, already had the judiciary open two different files against İmamoğlu. The first one is because of corruption charges, and the second one for insulting the public servants. And on 31st of April, the first trial will be held. So more or less, we will understand if Erdogan will use this judiciary card or not against Mr. İmamoğlu. Of course, the second important candidate can be Ankara's mayor, Mansur Yavaş, but I assume that it's more unlikely because of his age, and İmamoğlu is much younger than him. So I assume that Mr. İmamoğlu will become the next candidate for the Republican People's Party. Of course, we'll see what will happen until then. And of course, Israel during the whole election campaign, unfortunately, Israel occupied the headlines once again. It became a very hot topic to attract the masses in Turkey. And we could see once again that the Turkish foreign policy became a very important tool for both oppositions and, of course, governments, public affairs instrument. And because of the war in Gaza, and especially during the last days of October, we happen to see that the Turkish administration adopted a very, very pro-Hamas attitude. Of course, ironically, before Mr. Erdogan, the Turkish opposition itself, even on the very day of 7th of in the very beginning of the October, we happen to see that the Turkish administration, the Turkish opposition, already declared their open support to Hamas, and only after more or less like 2 weeks, the Turkish government declared their open support to Hamas. So it was more or less a rivalry between the opposition and the Turkish government to to demonstrate their support for the Palestinian cause. And in this regard, unfortunately, we have seen that the Turkish constituency was influenced more and more with anti-Israel approach. But not only that, unfortunately, the October 7th massacre that Hamas conducted against Israel was forgotten. The Turkish media preferred they preferred not to speak about this issue anymore, and instead they solely focused on what was happening in Gaza. And of course, this paved the way for a huge wave of anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, we have seen a very, very blunt anti-Semitic incidents in all Turkey. I can give you some examples like a second-hand bookshop in Istanbul. They put a sign that no Jews were allowed, or a taxi put another sign, no Israeli passengers are allowed, and etc., etc. Of course, synagogue's entrance in the city of Izmir was vandalized. Of course, I'm not telling like burning the Israeli flags became a new normal, but of course, praising the Hamas terrorist organization was also legitimized, etc., etc. So today we are still seeing that attacking Israel is increasing parties' public approval. For instance, if I have to give a concrete example, nowadays, if you're looking at the Turkish opposition parties, the Future Party of Davutoğlu and the Felicity Party of Karamollaoğlu, they both are very much busy with criticizing the government for maintaining the trade relations with the state of Israel. If you're going to look at their newspapers, like the Karar newspaper or the Milli Gazete newspaper, you will see the continuous criticism of these newspapers / political parties against Mr. Erdogan's Justice and Development Party. And because of this public pressure, nowadays we also see another unfortunate phenomenon, that the Turkish Airlines, which happen to be the biggest airline company in Israel after Israeli national airlines, El Al Airlines. Of course, Tel Aviv station, once upon a time, was the most profitable station of Turkish Airlines outside of Turkey. The Israelis were using Istanbul for their transit flights. However, because of the war, the Turkish Airlines, they halted their flights in a unilateral manner. And therefore, unfortunately, today we do not have a natural bridge between Istanbul and Tel Aviv. And very ironically, the big winner here is Greece. because the Israeli businessmen who are conducting business with Turkey, they are not eager to fly to Turkey anymore, so they are flying to Athens. And the Turkish businessmen who are not flying to Tel Aviv, they are eager to fly to Athens. And in a very ironic and funny manner, Athens became the new capital for the Turkish-Israeli trade. And also the Aegean Airlines managed to fill the vacuum that was that was created by the Turkish Airlines. And I also would like to underline that it's not only Aegean Airlines, but also the Emirati airline companies, they also fill this vacuum. And therefore, also in terms of aviation sector, also in terms of trade, and also in terms of tourism, Greece and of course Cyprus are becoming the most profiting nations in this friction. Once again, Turkey with its own hands pushing Israel into the arms of the Hellenic republics of Greece and Cyprus. And as far as I see, the current Israeli relationship is not complaining about that. I assume that Greece and Cyprus would also, I mean, if they could congratulate Mr. Erdogan for such a strategic mistake that he did for the Turkish interests, I assume both the Greek leaders and the Cypriot leaders would do that. And of course, in the Middle East and in the Eastern Mediterranean, the interests are above all, and therefore Israel, together with Cyprus, Greece, and other allies, will continue to cooperate also in the future. As a person who grew up in Turkey, I really hope that in the aftermath of this war, Turkey would also change its mind and would also make a new rapprochement vis-a-vis the state of Israel. But as a researcher who is living in Israel and who is an Israeli at the same time, but also grew up in Turkey, I can tell you that this new normalization, if it will ever happen, will not happen under the current leaderships of Israel and Turkey. I think we need a new blood in the relations. I don't think that the relations could be restored with Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So nowadays we have to preserve what we have in our hand, and for the future generations, we should do our best to promote cooperation between Israel and Turkey. And of course, in my opinion, such a cooperation will also pave the way for a wider cooperation, for a regional cooperation between Israel, Greece, Turkey, and even Cyprus. And also it can contribute to the Cypriot question. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much once again for having me.